Has having a height impairment affected the way people approached you in a social setting, would you say, as a general rule?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it just makes people kind of hesitant to approach me. Obviously, like it's really like my disability is really evident, obvious. Like you can see it by looking at me. So I think that sometimes stops people from making that first, you know, contact. But I'd say it also affects me too because I'm not really putting myself out there much. So I can't really blame them because I don't really seem like a very approachable person because, yeah.
So, do you think, because this is an interesting point, it's to me, it seems like a chicken and egg situation. Maybe you can clear this up or agree or disagree. Would you consider yourself more introverted or extroverted?
I would definitely say that I'm a more introverted person. I keep to myself the majority of the time. Like my circle of friends is very small. And I like to think that has something to do with just who I am as a person. But I mean, your personal experiences obviously have a great impact on who you are. So I'm sure it's a little bit of both.
Well, yeah, the reason I mean, you're obviously seeing where I'm going with this. The reason I ask is because it's sort of like a chicken or egg. Which influences which more? Does the disability sort of create this vicious cycle where you become more introverted because people treat you differently? Or does your introversion sort of make the disability sadly more obvious and just add to that sort of vicious cycle where it's pointed out because you're not talking to people. So what else are they going to do but look at you type of thing,
exactly.
right? All right. Do you think your physical disability plays a role in determining not just who may be interested, either friend-wise or relationship-wise, but also in who you talk to?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that I tend to talk to people who are also more shy themselves because, I don't know, it's kind of intimidating sometimes to kind of interact with people that are very loud because it's so opposite from myself. I'm very shy, I'm very quiet, so I try to kind of attract that same energy, but sometimes that's not always the case.
From a physical standpoint, what sort of obvious things, besides, as you mentioned in October, taking pictures or whatever and pointing and laughing, that revolves more around strangers. When you're talking to somebody, usually, can you tell if they're being, let's say, fake and they're, liking you or taking a liking to you? Can you tell they're faking versus they're actually genuinely interested?
Yeah.
Or are you always on edge because you just expect people to, first of all, notice your disability and then pretend to like you out of, say, an emotion like pity, per se?
I think most of my encounters that I have on a daily basis feel very like forced. It's kind of hard to explain it to someone who like doesn't have an evident physical disability, but you can just sense when someone is being genuine or if they're talking to you out of sympathy. Just with, like facial expression and tone, like it's really obvious. It's kind of like if you're talking with your friends and then your teacher walks into the room, like it kind of goes silent and it gets awkward and you feel like you can't say certain things. It's kind of like that. Like you can just tell, like they think you're maybe underdeveloped or they have to be careful with what they say around you. But yeah, it's kind of like that.
So it's more of a feeling than anything. It's like hard to explain. I think for anybody, but yourself especially, because even with the added advantage of being able to see, whereas I can't, or being able to hear, whereas someone else can't. That's both an advantage and disadvantage, because optimistically you want to think that everybody's talking to you because they want to, because you're